invited guests, members of the media, very good afternoon. It gives me profound gratitude. I don't think there's anyone in this room who can disagree that the oil and gas sector holds the greatest potential to fundamentally change and transform Guyana's economic landscape. Such a promise is what keeps our government, our private sector, our civil society, and ordinary citizens engaged and occurring in the sector. Speaking of being engaged, no one can doubt CGX's commitment and persistence to the development of Guyana's oil sector. Its efforts remind me of a quote that I have read somewhere, which says, "To sit patiently with a yearning that has not yet been fulfilled, and to trust that fulfillment will come, is quite possibly a laudable and admirable feat." This is exactly what CGX has done over the years, except the company has not sat patiently, but rather has engaged very actively in ensuring that the goal of offshore oil discovery is fulfilled. We all remember in 2000 when the maritime border dispute flared up between Guyana and Suriname, and the CGX rig was evicted. CGX not only stood the course with Guyana, but they also provided Guyana with technical and financial resources to support Guyana's case at the International Tribunal of the Seas, in which we eventually succeeded in a ruling and a judgment that allowed the present offshore exploration activities that we have today. For that, we should all join here today in applause and say thank you to CGX. I know that while every Guyanese are all eager and bursting with anticipation of an oil and gas find, we have to be very patient. Offshore drilling is the most complex and expensive way of accessing oil and gas reserves, particularly when it comes to deepwater exploration activities. The complexity and cost of such endeavors demand huge capital investments, long-term commitments, high efficiencies, and a great reliance on technology in order to reduce uncertainties. Moreover, it is estimated that in most scenarios, I know the High Commissioner in Canada always talks about his case in Newfoundland. Most drilling scenarios can take up to an average of 20 tries or 20 exploratory wells before you hit a reservoir. So we have to remain very patient and optimistic that in time Guyana will discover oil and possibly gas. In transitioning to an energy producing nation and to prepare for the sector, we all have a very important role to play to ensure that Guyana adheres to international best practices and to use the country's oil and gas resources to contribute to the early achievement of poverty eradication and create lasting value to our society. We need to ensure, very critically, that the proper legal and regulatory frameworks are in place. We need to bring on board international best practices in areas like environmental risk management, health and safety standards, management of petroleum revenues, educational support, open and competitive licenses and contract renewals, access to information and public disclosure, and to provide national participation as an effort to enhance value creation by oil and gas activities. I don't know if it's me or is the air conditioning not working, but I think it's probably me. We need to constantly update and expand the current Petroleum Act and adapt to new and emerging realities, so to ensure that activities are not running ahead of the legal frameworks that we operate, and we operate in a legal vacuum. Recently, we have seen many efforts towards this end over the years, from various stakeholders, including the Ministry of Natural Resources and the Environment, the United States Embassy, the Canadian High Commission, and the private sector in Guyana. Only recently, the United hosted a 3-day workshop for stakeholders to address energy governance and capacity. The Canadian High Commission last year developed and launched an oil and gas guide for Guyana. It also facilitated the development and the materialization of the soon-to-be commissioned mining school, with the enormous involvement of the College of North Atlantic and the Canadian Coast Guard College. In 2011, Canada also organized a seminar entitled Preparing for Offshore Energy Resources, the Atlantic Canada Experience, which was conducted by regulatory officials from Canada's Newfoundland and Labrador Offshore Petroleum Board. The government of Guyana has also facilitated similar seminars and have been working to strengthen its regulatory capabilities by restructuring the GGMC's Petroleum Division into a Petroleum Advisory Board to advise the President and the Cabinet on issues involving the sector. In terms of ensuring adequate accountability and transparency, I would recommend that Petroleum Advisory Board also fall under parliamentary oversight. Our own private sector has not been excluded from these efforts, and the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry, for instance, in collaboration with the Canadian High Commission, we're in discussions to host very soon an oil and gas seminar conference that deals with preparing for an oil and gas future. We'll invite representatives from Canada, we'll invite representatives from Trinidad, so they can come here, share their experiences as to how they develop their framework, their foundational framework for their oil and gas sector to take off. In closing, I want to congratulate the CGX team for its steadfast and enduring commitment to Guyana over the years. And I very much look forward to the many contributions the company will make in Guyana's future development. I would like to assure you that you have a friend in the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the Private Sector Commission, and in all Guyanese who wishes the company's nothing but immense success and prosperity. Like the rest of you here, I wait in deep anticipation on the pronouncements to be made here this afternoon by Dr. Suresh Narayan. Thank you very much.
Maybe Clinton knows what he's talking about when he talks about expecting great things with bated breath this afternoon. You did talk about tries. I think in American football, you get 3 points for a try. Maybe we've got like about 6 points at CGX. We're looking to get a great coach and a talented quarterback and go for the home run. So without further ado, here is the executive chair of CGX Energy Inc. to speak to you. And what the program says is to provide an update on activities that are being undertaken towards the continued exploration on the company's petroleum property licenses in Guyana. Dr. Suresh.
Thank you, Faith. Good evening, ladies. Before I say what we've called you here to talk about, I would like to recognize the presence of a are dear to me and dear to CGX's operations. And I must recognize, of course, the august presence of our Honourable Prime Minister, Canada's High Commissioner, Mr. David Devine, and it would be very remiss of me if I were not to single out for punctuation our co-founders of CGX in the audience, Dr. Kamal Duki, our own, your own, Dr. Kamal Duki, and Mr. John Cullen. At the same time, I would like to also recognize Mr. Ashley Jackson, who's been, of course, a very distinguished foreign minister of Guyana and a long-time advisor to CGX. The greater CGX family, and of course those of you who have followed us with interest and support over the years, welcome and thank you for coming. I have left, of course, the most interesting for last, and that is to introduce these gentlemen whom you have not seen before, but who you will see much more often. And these are partners of CGX who have traveled here from as far afield as Toronto and Bogota. They're all members of the Pacific Rubiales group of companies. I would like to recognize Serafino Iacono, the chair of the Pacific Company. Serafino, if you take a bow. Mr. Ronald Pantine, the CEO of Pacific Rubiales. Dennis Mills, board member of the Pacific Rubiales Michael Gallagher, counsel, deputy counsel. Clearly, to introduce this gentleman without putting a context on why you're here. And I will get to that, but permit me first to contextualize what I want to talk about. Now, all of you know that CGX has been operating in Guyana for about 15 years. Clinton quite succinctly described that this company, more than any other, has espoused the hopes and aspirations of Guyanese to realize a petroleum future. We have stayed true to that promise, and indeed we have spent approximately 75% of all petroleum expenditures in this basin. Now, contextualize that by realizing that in this basin are some of the veritable giants of the oil and gas industry in the world. And little CGX not only has spent more than 75% of those exploration dollars, it was a company that stood by the Guyanese government and its people when we were challenged about our territorial integrity. That you know. And so far be upon it for me to keep you waiting for things that you do not know. What I want to talk about today is not so necessarily new beginnings, but a rejuvenation of the CGX brand, a rejuvenation of what we stand for, and a re-energization of our, and I use that word, that pun quite deliberately, of course, because we are all about energy. It's a re-energization of the vision and the strategy. Quite simply put, CGX has drilled a number of wells, and as you heard Clinton most adequately describe the risks involved with drilling for petroleum. You know, many of you would have heard of the name of the company Phillips 66. And one wonders why the number 66 was attached to that name. It's very simple. They drilled 66 wells, and on the 67th well, they discovered petroleum. We don't plan to drill anywhere near that number. However, it underscores the fact that the business we're in takes effort, and more importantly, it takes significant technical and financial capability. I am not going to skirt around what you all know. CGX, upon the drilling of the last dry well, experienced a plummet of its stock. It experienced a significant deterioration of its prospects, and we set about quite deliberately to rebuild the promise of those prospects. Now today I'm happy to announce that CGX has announced over the past weeks and months the renewal of 3 of our most important licenses: the Corentyne license, Demerara, which used to be the Annex license, and the Berbice license. Armed with an ability to continue our unprecedented expenditure in this basin in search of petroleum, we then sought to secure the requisite financial ability to pursue what is the most aggressive work plan ever proposed in this basin. CGX has proposed a work plan that spans between an estimate of $600 million to $1 billion US of expenditure over the next 5 years. And we set out then to secure a partner who could be there with us for the distance of that. I'm pleased to announce today that after an exhaustive look at our options, we decided to invite Pacific Rubiales, who already owned 30% of the CGX company, to escalate their interest in the company and to join us. But I must point out that this invitation was a deliberate invitation. It was not simply an invitation based upon the amount of dollars that Pacific could bring to the table, but really hinged upon the fact that Pacific has been able to deliver more successes in this basin than any single other company in the world. And the fact that geologically they have been more than 80% successful in all the prospects that they have pursued including Brazil and Peru and Colombia. And so we're talking about our board and our management sitting down very carefully and evaluating what would be the best partner for us to take forward. I am absolutely delighted to say that what I'm here today to announce is a new CGX. A new CGX which continues to embrace all of the reasons that you have come to know us by. The vision of CGX, its strategy, its commitment, its singular commitment to this basin, its commitment to social responsibility, its commitment to be a good corporate citizen, and its continued existence in the absence of a national oil company as Guyana's de facto oil company is, I want to let you know, maintained most aggressively and renewed. At the same time, we have chosen this opportunity to partner with Pacific Rubiales. We will be announcing in a formal press release which was announced in Toronto minutes ago and which will be distributed to members of the media today, that we have entered into an agreement, a transaction with Pacific Rubiales for a financial transaction between $35 and $40 million. What this allows us to do as CGX is to take care of a number of bills that have been outstanding. Copies of the press release are being circulated, as well as significantly look forward to the company pursuing its financial interests in order to accommodate the work plan that we've put forward. The question might be asked that I'm talking about $1 billion of investment and we're announcing a $40 million transaction today. Fact of the matter is, with our licenses in hand and with the dollars that we're injecting into the company now, we are not only poised, but we are well on our way to beginning that aggressive work plan. Our commitment to this basin, to the government and people of Guyana, is not an idle one. I am here today to let you know, and all of you know me, and you know I don't say these things like very lightly. I'm here to let you know that CGX is here for the distance. So we're announcing new financing. At the same time, we've taken the opportunity to look at ourselves. We've had 15 years of very involved activity in this basin. But every company after 15 years needs to be reviewed and renewed. So one of the things we're announcing is that we're rejuvenating and renewing our management. We are choosing to take this opportunity to renew entirely our technical management so that we can continue to address the promise that we keep holding up to the people of Guyana. Over the next weeks and months, CGX will be announcing a total renewal of its management. At the same time, we've taken very careful steps to renew and rejuvenate our board. I am delighted to let you know that we have chosen, quite deliberately, to keep Guyanese management at the center of what CGX does. I will be continuing as executive chair of CGX. Dr. Dennis Peters, who's on our board, will be continuing to serve his constituency, and his constituency is all of Guyana, on the board of CGX. Mr. John Cullen, who is a founder of CGX and I would have to believe an honorary Guyanese citizen, will continue to lend his strong and often silent support to the vision. And at the same time, I'm delighted to let you know that we have added to our board Mr. Dennis Mills. Dennis comes with a very long history of political and social involvement in Canada. He was a peer of the late great Pierre Trudeau. I have had the honor of getting to know Dennis over the past 6 months, and I can tell you that he shares all of my vision for what, not only for the profits that this can bring to our company and our shareholders, but for what it can mean to Guyanese. And so I am personally delighted to welcome you, Dennis, and thank you for making the effort to come all this way. At the same time, we have been honored that Ronald Pantine, the CEO of Pacific Rubiales, has joined the board of CGX. And so together with Dennis and Ronald, we already have 2 current members of Pacific Rubiales in our board. Dr. Marino Ostos, PhD geologist, and Mr. Jose Francisco Orata, the managing director of Pacific Rubiales. So we are going forward into this next phase of our exploration, armed not only with a board which is robust, experienced, and is backed by great financial and technical acumen, but we are seeking to completely rejuvenate our management. I want to assure our listening public, as well as those of you here, that we will continue to pursue a pathway that seeks to not only employ maximum local content, but we will actively help train that local content. And in so doing, we look forward to the continued efforts of a man that has really defined what it should be like to be a High Commissioner. Mr. David Devine has done wonders for Canada's extension to Guyana. Sir, I want to thank you and applaud you for your efforts. And we will continue to work with him in training Guyanese so that they can take advantage of these opportunities. I have probably said enough. What I want to underscore again is that our vision, our strategy remains intact. I have committed to seeing this to the end, and that there are no other company exploring for oil in Guyana that has as much local content. You would note that I have left one person for last. And this is an individual who's not only important to me from a business perspective, but also from a personal perspective. He's a brother. And I want to single out Dr. Kamal Duki, who was the brainchild of CGX. He, as a Guyanese son, conceptualized the beginning of this program. And I want to assure all that Dr. Duki will continue to be the face of CGX in Guyana. As you know, I have many hats, and my head seems to have grown to accommodate them. But Kamal has been here through thick and thin, fortune, fame, and absolute family. And we applaud you, sir, and look forward to your continued involvement in leadership. So, we are here to endorse a bright future. I could not be more happy. I want to leave you with the endorsement that when I got involved with CGX, I demanded that as a condition of my involvement, I was going to be able to oversee social responsibility and the environment. That has not changed. You could rest assured that Guyanese social fabric and Guyanese environment and our longevity will continue to reside under my rule. So, I thank you for your attention. We will of course have a question and answer period, but I want to introduce the gentlemen that flew all the way from Bogota today and will be flying back tonight. First, and I'll introduce them both so I don't have to come back up again. Mr. Ronald Pantine, the CEO, who has become a great friend over the past number of months, and with whom I can tell you I've developed the utmost trust, both for his humility and his word, and the fact that he will never cross his word. And then following Ronald, I would like to introduce you to Sarafino Arcono, the chairman of Pacific Rubiales. I would ask Ronald to focus on the technical promise of our basin. It will bring oil back to our people. But I want to also introduce Pacific to us. And so I asked Serafino to give us a brief glimpse of the amazing breadth that Pacific Rubiales brings to Guyana, because we have other interests here than just oil and gas. I thank you so much for your attention, and I look forward to your questions today.
And I'm looking at that poster, said inspired by our past and excited about our future. That's what is going to happen. That this day reminds me, 5 years ago in Bogota, we have the same day. Colombia was producing 600,000 barrels per day, barely to meet with their consumption, and we went there. At that time, we said some words similar to what's happening right now. 5 years after, Colombia is producing 1 million barrels per day. And so it has increased 1 million barrels per day. From those 400,000 increased, 300,000 have been Pacific Rubiales. This is very important. Now, Pacific Rubiales have become the largest independent oil company in Latin America, with an incredible success, 83% success ratio in exploration, where we have that success ratio with that incremental in production. And probably the most important thing is not only to discover, but the speed that we develop our oil fields. We go from exploration to production in one of our major oil fields, the Rubiales field, in only 2 to 3 years. We went from 0 to 210,000. And in the other field, we went from 0 to 60,000, that's the Quifa field, in only 1 year and a half. We understand very well this basin. Who is Pacific Rubiales? Pacific Rubiales, the people of Pacific Rubiales was the top management of PDVSA. And we were in PDVSA before. We retired, we are, gray hair, but we understand very well this basin. This basin starts here in Guyana, actually. Goes through Trinidad, south of Trinidad, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. And we understand very well the geology of this basin. When you understand the geology of this basin, you find oil. The reason for that is not luck, you have to have the knowledge, and you also have, for sure, to have the prospectivity that Guyana is nowadays the best play in the Western Hemisphere. So that's why we're here. Why Pacific Rubiales is not coming directly to Guyana? Because we understand that CGX have done a great job. In 15 years, they have really done a great job understanding, maturing the basin, fighting for Guyana, for example, in the border with Suriname, and helping the country to get all those concessions. Right now, CGX it brings into this association probably more than Pacific. Pacific is bringing to the association technical capability and financial capability. But all this know-how of the country, all this understanding, as Suresh mentioned, this CGX is nowadays national oil company. Well, that's the way that people feel it. So we will respect that association, and we will bring all the muscle of Pacific Rubiales, the financial capability and the technical capability to this land of opportunity. Now I'm going to pass the word to Serafino Iagno, because Pacific Rubiales is more than oil and gas. We are also involved in gold, coal, power, agriculture, iron, and he's going to be explaining a little bit more about all of that. Thank you very much.
Good evening. That Ronald is saying, we come over here and we see a tremendous opportunity, and we feel honored to be part of a country like this that has everything to be developed and to be done. Our group, as an experience in coming into a country, and when we decide that we come into a country, we become part of our country. As we did in Venezuela when we were working in Venezuela for many years, developing the mining industry and infrastructure industry, and as we did in Colombia. Started 5 years ago with an idea of going into a place that for 40 years was inaccessible because of political turmoil.